We've got some big news for Atlanta in Week 18 to talk about on today's episode. But quick plug here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're going to have a lot of free agency content, a lot of draft content coming your way over the next couple of weeks and months. So make sure you subscribe to Falcons Today right now. Let's talk about Week 18 for the Falcons because I have some big news, and it's not really pertaining to this matchup right here between Atlanta and Carolina, but it's the other, I would say, more important matchup, and that is the Buccaneers hosting the Saints. If you don't know, the Falcons need Tampa Bay to lose this game if they want any chance of going to the postseason, and that just became a whole lot more difficult because Spencer Rattler has been announced as the starter. This is not a big surprise. Derek Carr has been battling injuries for the last couple of weeks, pretty much the entire season. But Atlanta's chances of the Saints knocking off the Buccaneers just took a very steep nosedive with Rattler starting and not Derek Carr, who, if it's Derek Carr, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they could knock off the Buccaneers any given Sunday. They're all professionals. I've got no faith in Spencer Rattler whatsoever. So, I don't want to sound doom and gloomy, but there goes the season. Atlanta, 8-8, finished 9-8. Buccaneers finished 10-7. They get the 4 seed. They host the loser of the Vikings and Lions Sunday Night Football matchup. And there you have it. Unfortunately, I do not see Atlanta having a path to the postseason with Spencer Rattler having to be the hero for the Falcons. Ultimately, I think we can look back at this season and go, Raheem Morris kind of screwed the pooch. Like, a lot of blame, and deservingly so, should be placed on Kirk Cousins' play for the way he played in that 4-game losing streak, but also at the same, 4-game losing streak, but also at the same time, Raheem Morris was the guy who continued trotting him out there, even though it just got worse and worse by the week, and they could have salvaged something coming out of the bye, home against the Chargers. No, he wanted to stick with Kirk. Kirk threw 4 interceptions, including a pick 6. Coming out of that game, the worst game of Cousins' career by a mile. And he sticks with Kirk, and they lose to the Vikings. Then they stick with Kirk, and they barely get by the Raiders, and they turn to Michael Penix, who, if Penix, let's say, was playing his 3rd career start against the Commanders and not his 2nd career start because they started Penix against the Raiders instead of the Giants for the first time, maybe he plays a little bit better earlier on in that game and throughout the game because he had some very clutch fourth quarter, drives and also just 4th down conversions. But woulda, coulda, shoulda for sure, no doubt about it. But ultimately, I think Raheem Morris and his hoarding tendency with timeouts and his inability to move on from Kirk Cousins sunk the 2024 Atlanta Falcons season. So let me ask you this question right now. If the season ends with no playoff berth for Atlanta, is that a disappointing season? Finished 9-8. First winning record in a while. 2017? Is that a disappointment to you? I think so. I think with the monetary investment that has been made into this roster, the $180 million to Kirk Cousins, and then you back that up with the number 8 draft pick going to the quarterback position, and all the other signings, Darnell Mooney, Jesse Bates last year, like this team was in salary cap hell after Dimitroff and Terry Fontenot takes over and very little spending year 1 and year 2. And the last couple of years, they're like, all right, we're kind of out of that salary cap hell, so we're going to go out there, we're going to put together a competitive roster, and ultimately it ends with a 9-8 season. I would say in my book that is a disappointing season. If I told you guys back in August, hey, Atlanta finishes 9-8, but they missed the postseason, I don't think anyone's going to go, yeah, let's pat ourselves in the back. That's better than 7-10. The bar is higher than that, in my opinion. It's very disappointing and very frustrating. I'm also realizing at this moment that before the season started, I took the Falcons over 9.5 wins. So that just stinks now that I think about it. But anywho, before we get on to the rest of today's show and talk about the offseason for the Falcons, because with Spencer Rattler starting, I know no one wants to hear it, but it's my job to say it. The offseason might as well start tomorrow because I don't see Rattler taking down the Buccaneers. But first, a quick shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to $1,000. 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money as quick as 15 minutes. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. So let's talk about the offseason for the Falcons. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but just a little bit of a appetizer, if you will. What are Atlanta's biggest needs? I would say edge rusher. Still need to get after the quarterback, although it was much, much better the second half of the season compared to the first half. I mean, Atlanta was dead last in sacks through the first 10 games with 11 sacks. Not even averaging a sack, averaging just over a sack a game. And then the last 5-6 weeks, they lead the NFL in sacks. So kudos to Jimmy Lake. Give credit where credit is due. Him and the players, they have turned it around massively. But I still think Atlanta needs to do a better job of getting after the quarterback because despite leading the NFL in sacks over the last 5 weeks, they're still bottom 10 in sacks. I think they were 25th, 26th. No. I lied. They're like 28th or 29th. So there is still a long ways to go for Atlanta's pass rush. Cornerback Mike Hughes is going to be a free agent, I'm pretty sure. So they're going to have addressed their CB2. And then tight end. I know Kyle Pitts is there, so it may not seem like a big need, but the tight end position has not contributed much to the overall Falcons 2024 season outside of an awesome 4th and goal touchdown from Pitts against the Commanders. So I'd say these are their top 3 biggest needs at this moment. So how can they fulfill those needs? Well, obviously, the draft is a great way to do so. The Falcons are currently slated for the 17th overall pick. Now, even if they win and the Texans lose, for example, Atlanta cannot climb above 18. 1 through 18 is reserved for teams that miss the playoffs. So if Atlanta misses the playoffs, they may be the best team to miss the postseason at 9 and 8, depending on what happens with Seattle. If the Seahawks win and the Falcons win, we're looking at pick number 17, but we'll see how Sunday plays out. The Falcons are currently slated to have 5 picks in the draft. Their first, second, no third. That belongs to New England for Matthew Judon. Fourth, no fifth. That belongs to charity. That got taken away for tampering. And then no sixth. That goes back to the Contavious Street trade or the Van Jefferson trade, one of the two. And then they have 2 sevenths. They acquired an additional 7th rounder via Taylor Heineke getting dealt to the Chargers in September. So that's what they're working with draft-wise. Now, free agency-wise, they don't have a ton of cap space at the moment, but this number can change right here. They currently have $5.5 million in cap space. They could open up a bunch more cap space by maybe, and I don't think they should do this necessarily, but if you want to move on from Caleb McGarry, he's a run-first right tackle, as most right tackles are. Michael Penix being a lefty is not a good fit for that. So maybe they'd spend the whole offseason flip-flopping Jake Matthews and Caleb McGarry, but Matthews has been a left tackle his entire career. I don't know if at this stage of his career it's going to be an easy switch for him. Maybe they make that the entire goal of the offseason, but that might be a bit too daunting. So they might be going after a new right tackle, and they can free up some cap space by moving on from McGarry. They can also move on from some older guys like David Onyemata, for example, who I think has played like B-plus football this year, but Atlanta might not think he's worth the salary cap hit. So don't get too attached to this number. It can change, and I suspect it will change. Who could they be targeting in free agency? I mean, I would think pass rusher, right? Double down on it. Go get a pass rusher in free agency, and then go get, James Pierce out of Tennessee in round 1, or any Georgia Bulldog. Go get a defender in round 1 and kind of double dip in free agency. Khalil Mack, he's been having a really strong year. Our old friend Haason Reddick. If you want to bring back Matthew Judon, he's played well as of late. Maybe he takes a little bit of a discount to stay in Atlanta. Josh Sweat is the youngest. No, Azeez Ojulari is the youngest of the bunch. So these 2 cats are under 30. These 3 guys are all just over 30 years old. So Josh Sweat, Azeez Ojulari, 2 younger guys that are going to be a little bit more expensive because of their age than the first 3. But if you're looking for a real long-term investment, this is it right here. Hopefully it's not like a Dante Fowler Jr. 2.0, though. All right, before we get on out of here, what are your score predictions for Falcons versus Panthers? Let me hear in the comment section below. I would, this sounds cynical, watch Atlanta lose and the Buccaneers lose as well. And then Tampa goes to the postseason. Like, that's my nightmare scenario right there. I'd rather, if the Falcons lose, the Bucs better win. That I am rooting for Tampa to win because that is nightmare fuel going. It was there for the taking, and you let it slip through your fingers. I'll say Falcons win this game 21-20. The Panthers have been frisky lately. They have been playing teams closer than they did at the start of the year. So I'll say Atlanta narrowly escapes Bryce Young and the Panthers. All right, quick shout out to the Dirty Birds Club. Appreciate every single one of you for supporting the channel all season long, hanging out with us during all of our watch parties. We're going to have, hopefully, not our final watch party tomorrow for the Panthers game. Hopefully there's a playoff watch party that comes the next weekend, but I'm not getting my hopes up.